I'm og1764, and I will be running through the trial showcase for you all. So this is about the third time that I'm recording it. Turns out that even though all of these trials are like 15 seconds, there's a whole heap that I can talk about. So I've just put in hundreds of hours into like 10-second trials. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to start with Qualix Hollow, and I'll just introduce you to like two main mechanics that we abuse a little bit. So first of all, there's a fast fall. So here you can see I was falling faster, but I also have no air dash. So that's when you want to fall down quickly, but you don't particularly care about having a dash. We also have a double dash, which is where you dash jump and then dash again, and then the game still thinks that you have an air dash. So you'll see us use that later. But anyway, let's move on because time is ticking, and yeah, so let's go. So let's have a quick look at the Qualix Recce that I hold. So you'll see at the start, I'm going to do a fast fall, and then a brief feather up here. Got there eventually, to make sure I actually land on this platform. Gonna bonk into the ceiling, and then I'm gonna wrap around, have a corner boost here, and here's where I'm gonna have a quick talk about frame rates. So with trials, we allow uncapped frame rates, and the physics behaves a little bit weirdly for all of them. So, different frame rates. So, while typically for trials, higher frame rate is better, exactly which frame rate you use, whether you decide to cap it at, say, 120 or 90 or 144 or uncapped, that's all going to change how these corner boosts and all these little physics things works. So just keep that in mind if you decide to start running. So anyway, I've just had that corner boost. I'm going to go for another corner boost with another feather tap. I'm going to wave around, and then here is something that was discovered by Infinite, and in fact, Fast Fall was discovered by Infinite as well. It was very remiss of me not to mention that. So here I'm going to do a double dash across here, then jump and bonk into this hanging platform. That means that I get my air dash back, and that way I'm able to complete the trial. So that's one trial down. Let's head over to Inkwater. I'm just going to do all of this in-game so that I can start talking while I'm actually going. So in Inkwater, there is a interesting time where honestly, it looks like they use a macro because the rest of the movement isn't super clean, but there is every chance that it is a legitimate time. But regardless, we'll be going through my time, and then I'll briefly touch on Sirius's time, as they have a different approach to the end, or not to the end, to the start bit. So you'll see at the start, I'm just going to do a bunch of jump dashes. This also depends on your frame rate, like how quickly you can mesh it, and I'm just going to do a jump and fall down here. That's different to if I'd done a fast fall, because as you'll see here, I dash along the surface of the water. Other runners, like True Evil and I believe Sirius, go into the water. I'm not sure if it's faster or slower, it's just something that I could never get the hang of. So here, previously we used to grapple up to here, but I think it's slow. Sirius found this one, so this is the movement that we use. I'll discuss Sirius's movement in a bit. So, onto this next section. Early on, during this trial, people discovered that if you dashed into it, then you would bounce way higher. So you'll see this later on in Avalanche Escape as well. So here we're diving into the water to get an angle, and there we get launched way higher as well. So here you're just going to continue as per usual. We're going to dash into the spikes here to make sure that we can grapple as soon as possible, and then we're just going to slide down to wrap around to make sure that we get that all sorted. So let's have a quick look at the start of Sirius's run, just so I can show you the difference, and then we'll move over to Wellspring. So Sirius has the same start as me, but instead you'll see they go up onto the top, and then they do this bit of movement. I honestly wasn't able to time this super closely. It may just be that I'm bad, and that's why I haven't been doing that strat. So there's definitely still a little bit of time to save there. So let's continue on to the Wellspring. Now the Wellspring is very interesting. On launch patch, you used to be able to climb sort of up the right hand side and then jump across. There were no checkpoints, and there weren't any spikes over here, so you could just climb up. But that all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Yeah, so previously you were able to just jump up here. There were no spikes here. You could just climb. In addition, here is where like some of the leaderboard shenanigans really takes place, because it's such a large area. It's so easy for people to use different exploits or use previous patches to actually just, get stupid time. So that's why, I'm ranked 155. There is somebody with a better time than me, Duke. I saw a screenshot from them on the official Ori Discord. I asked, yeah, but unfortunately I didn't have a video of it, so I can't go through that and show you, which is what I'll be doing for other videos. So let's have a look and let's have a quick discussion on this one. So at the very start, there's two different ways. I go around this spike. You can duck underneath, but I'm just bad. Here we're going to dash across, and now I'm going to do a backflip, and then I'm going to do a grapple, and that's going to behave very similarly to a bash glide, where I'm going to keep a whole heap of neutral speed once this grapple finishes. So you'll see I just fly across and I retain that speed for the rest of this first half of the trial as well. So go through, there's not a whole heap super interesting. There is a little bit of movement just coming up where I cancel a grapple with a jump just here, so that I can start dashing a little bit faster. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. In terms of Duke's time, they have a 24.9, I believe. So there's definitely more time to save in this trial as well. So let's move on. Let's head to everybody's favorite, Bow's Reach. So, on the topic of, yeah, so, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So, Bow's Reach, personally, I find super enjoyable. I know that not a whole heap of other people find the movement enjoyable, but I enjoy getting into the rhythm of it. There's also a super enjoyable bug that's been here since release, where if you stay in this area / reset too much or whatever, the audio just dies. So that's super fun. So yeah, I'll just run you through it. So the basic movement is going to be a dash into a jump into a feather. So basically I'm dashing because that's the fastest way to move horizontally with the skill set that you have in trials. And then I'm going to jump to cancel that dash effectively. Then I'm going to feather as soon as I can. So because being in a feather with some updraft, that refreshes your air dash. So I'm doing that somewhat quickly. Obviously this could be done quicker. Maybe it could be done even faster if you had a if you're on a keyboard. But let's see, I'm sure that I can squeeze this run in just so we can have a bit of a laugh and see just how quickly this person goes through. So I'm pretty sure this is a macro. I mean, maybe KBM is just super strong, but like, this is really fast. Yeah, so this has sort of been the eternal issue with Bow's Reach. Just the ability to spam that using a macro. Yeah, like you can see you're not even... This person isn't even really gaining any height as they go through, which is the main issue when you're going through this. So personally, I really enjoy Bow's Reach. Not everybody does, but, that's something that I really enjoy. So next, we'll head over to Moldwood. This was probably the first trial that I super grinded. Like I remember grinding for like a 19 or a 20, with Vula and with Onan and I don't think it was with Sigma. And Onan actually found like the big trick in this trial. But first of all, let's just have a quick discussion about it. So there's actually two different starts, depending on how you approach this trial. So if when you start the trial, your previous movement was holding right, you don't dash as far as if you're holding left. So I'll just start one just to show you. And you'll see that Safe's ghost goes way further out than my ghost does. Now, a lot of the muscle memory that I have comes from the muscle memory that I've got. So, who knows, maybe that's why I'm in second place, but whatever. This trial also has a bit of a history in terms of cheaters, because you can just shortcut through it, and in terms of being able to prime the run. So there's a spider a little bit later on, I'll show you where it is. And if you interact with that spider prior to starting the trial, the spider will still be there, so you can bash off it and its projectile. So this is really the key bit of this trial. So you want to dash off here, and then there's a little bit of ground, or a little bit of wall rather, in here that you can contact, and that refreshes your air dash, and that's really critical to basically the whole route. So Onan initially found this, and as I continue, you'll see that we have a bash glide here, and in Will of the Wisps, bash glide speed is dependent on frame rate. So if you have a higher frame rate, your bash glides are very slow. If you have a lower frame rate, your bash glides are much faster. So that's all well and good. I'll just have a frame rate of 1, you say. And that's fine until you want to try and hit that very small dash refresh, that small bit of wall. Because like the more frames you have, the easier it is for one of those frames you to be on the right bit of wall. So personally, I run at 60, Safe I know runs at 90, and this spot where I've paused is also where a spider typically hangs. So if you interact with this spider prior to starting the run, then the spider will still be there. But anyway, let's continue. Bashing near grapple points is super fun. Here's something where you want to jump out of a grapple and then do a double dash over here. There's also like an alternate route up here that Vula suggested, where you go into this bit of wall and wrap around. I think that's a little bit slower, but who really knows? In addition, in this trial, you can see Safe using Sticky. So Sticky is the only shard that you can use inside trials, and really that's an accessibility feature, because if you don't have the mechanical skill to climb up walls, or if that's something that you're unable to do for whatever reason, Moon decided, hey, let's use Sticky. So while we were figuring things out, patch 1, launch patch, we determined that with the skill set that you have in a trial, that Sticky is actually the fastest way to climb up the vertical wall. So I'm not sure if that's still the case, but that's why we use Sticky in that trial. Anyway, moving on to my favorite trial of all time, which is Silent Woods. So, Batjam, Umbra, and myself, we're really fighting for this recce. And at the time, as we both got these PBs, like third place was like 15 seconds. So just because a recce is there doesn't mean that there's not more time for that recce to save, because we just kept pushing it further and further down. Like first we were sub 14, and now we're 13.6. And there's always more time to improve in these trials. Then just because they're 13 seconds doesn't mean that they're optimized perfectly. They're just somewhat optimized. So let's have a look. And we'll see what this does. This is also an opportunity for me to tell you about a soft lock potential. If you reset mid grapple onto this grapple point or this grapple point, then the game will crash. So don't. Just let that grapple continue, and then she'll be right. So you make your way through. This is all pretty stock standard. It's a little bit finicky getting all of this right, but really when you're talking about the Silent Woods trial, this is the screen that you're talking about. So there's a couple of different approaches. You can go underneath here and like damage boost into here. You can go over the top and slide down. You could go off the wall if you miss it. But basically what you want to do is you want to dash to here, and then you want to dash again. That'll bring you here-ish. Then you want to jump out of it and hold right, and that'll bring you onto the wall that's underneath here. Then you want to jump out and dash again. That'll bring you over here. then you want to jump onto this bit of wall, and then you can get out. Typically when people start, I suggest that they use debug, because then you can see the collision, and just get the muscle memory down pat using debug, because otherwise you're in for a bit of a rough time if you're just going to throw attempts at it. Yeah, so that's Silent Woods. Silent Woods is really fun. I would suggest more people do it if you can get past like the soft lock bits. So next, or finally for right now in my hurried state, because then I'll move on to pre-recorded things, because I've got Boat doing, well, I've been given some files by Boat in terms of the Wastes trial, and then I pre-recorded some things for May for the escapes. So, onto Luma Pools. Now, Luma Pools was sort of ruined by patch 3, and by sort of, I mean it was super ruined by patch 3. Previous to patch 3, the bubbles that came out came consistently. So, I'll just start a trial just to show you. So the first time that it comes out, you know, it's all well and good. These bubbles come out this way every single time, right? And you can see people, these other ghosts bouncing off bubbles that don't exist. So here, if I retry and I start again, these bubbles are going to be in a different spot. So that's why on the speedrun leaderboards, we only have it so that you can run on patch 2. Because they ruined it and I don't know why. But anyway, my time is close enough. I believe Safe... Actually, I believe that Safe has a better time than me if I can just quickly toggle to it. So I'll watch Safe's time. So basically this first half of the run, because the bubbles on patch 2 are consistent, you can really take your time on this first half as long as you catch this bubble over here. So you'll see Safe does that. Safe dashes into it, similar to the bounce pads, that gives him a little bit more height, and then also similar to Moldwood, using Sticky to make sure that you're able to climb that wall quickly.
Hi, I'm Boat. I'm going to go over a few of the strategies used in the Windswept Wastes run. So after entering the sand, we're going to try and get through it in exactly 3 dashes, and have good momentum going to this first grapple. After the second one, there are 2 routes that we can go for, and I'm going to go over the one that I use, which is, as we approach the sand wall, I'm going to do a horizontal dash, and then do my burrow. And that's going to give us a lot of speed. And we're going to do a similar thing here, where after this air dash, we're going to do our burrow up and to the right, and we're just going to clip through the corner of this little sand platform. This one's actually really easy, and this gives us a lot of speed as we go into the next section. So 3 burrows through this section. As you exit the sand, you should be holding space, because if you're not, sometimes you just won't go high enough. Here you want to make sure that you're on the left side of the sandball before you do the burrow, because if you're on the left side, go through the ball, and then hold left, you will end up perfectly spaced to go into the next section right here with just 1 jump. This section is just a bunch of dashes. We're going to clear this gap using burrow rather than glide or dash, just because burrow is really fast. With this platform, we want to clear it in 2 dashes, but you want to make sure that you just run off of the end here rather than doing a 3rd dash, because you want access to your dash early enough right here that you can dash and then immediately burrow into the sand. This end here, we're going to closely follow the wall, and we want to take the narrowest angle possible on our exit so that our jump here is as horizontal as possible and that we minimize airtime. So we land, we do our dash, and that's the end of the run. I also prepared a short demonstration of a alternate start route that I personally find to be just better. It's more consistent, and it is competitive with world record. You see, we go through the sand multiple times, and that takes advantage of the fact that burrow has a really high initial velocity, and we get that multiple times using this strategy. And you can see, as we go into this next section, we're basically tied with record, which is good because record has a really, really fast beginning and slows down at the end. Thank you.
Okay, so, hello. This is the escape portion of the Trials Showcase, and as I mentioned before, boy, did I underestimate how much I had to say about all these trials, because I have a lot. So anyway, let's get into it. So with the escapes, same as the trials, uncapped is generally preferred, because you're going to see a whole heap of jump dashes. Unfortunately, there's no ghost data, So the leaderboards are generally going to be more screwed up than the trial leaderboards. And that's just because, unless, any in-game time will get submitted. So May is really the undisputed escape queen. They've got the world record on all 3 of the escapes. There are a couple of other VODs, but they seem a little bit suspect. So May is really the undisputed queen. So as we see with the Wellspring escape, you can see that they start doing the jump dashes before the screen has even finished fading in. And now we see that May is going to dash through the water. This is faster than what I do, which is just go across the top. I don't know why I do that, but I do. In addition, there's a little bit of an annoying section here where if you reset before this log has fully fallen down, then when you reset again and you come back to it, then the log will just be missing. So that sort of comes under the priming section of the rule set that we have on like the SRC leaderboards. Anyway, here you're going to see May execute wheel skip, where she's going to trigger the wheel, step back, and then damage boost through. This next section, it's really just going to be, some pretty intuitive gameplay. You would be able to optimize this somewhat quickly just by playing it. And then finally, we have a slight difference, and I believe this is just, because May is faster than I am. So normally, I do one dash, and then I dash along the ground. May instead just does a bunch of dashes along the ground to get there. We ignore that grapple point because it's a bit of a waste of time, and then May finishes. So that is the Wellspring escape down. The leaderboards for Wellspring escape is a little bit suspect. It doesn't really like to accept any of my runs, and as you can tell, this 10-second time is clearly bogus. But anyway, moving rapidly on. Let's have a look at the Avalanche escape. So, Avalanche escape, May and myself actually have a difference in PB of about 0.1 of a second. So, and what's even more interesting is that we have totally different strats. So, we'll have a look at May's first, and then we'll watch through mine and you'll see the strats that are different. So, May's going to do a double dash over there, where I do not. We're going to do a jump here to make sure that we get enough vertical speed. And then we're not actually going to dash off the ground, but this is actually an air dash. And that ensures that we land on the log soon enough to get dragged down with it. May, you'll see here, is going to go all the way up to the top and feather. She actually brushes very slightly against one of those top leaves to refresh their air dash, and then they dash into this plant. Similar to as we've seen previously, that gives you much greater vertical speed. We'll grapple through here. You'll see May is going to burrow through those. I have a different strat there, and then we'll see a slightly slower way through there, but, May does have the recce. We're going to avoid the water, and in that, May will collect that world record. So now we'll just have a quick look at mine. So here's my run. As you can see, it's very similar. I don't do a double dash on that, and instead I do 2 dashes there. I once again do an air dash here. And instead of going all the way onto the top, I do a damage boost and go down, and then I dash over here. Once again, we dash onto the plant, and you'll see that I just do a double dash and then burrow through. I also do like the bows reach movement through there, which I suspect is a little bit faster, but also we're like a 10th of a second apart, so who knows. And then that's it. That's the trial finished. So let's move on to the final escape. That's not actually the final escape, but the final trial escape. Alright, so here we are with the final Winter on Ruins escape. So as you can see, there's a whole heap of jump dashing going on here. We're going to dash basically as much as we can. We're going to minimize our time in the sand. I believe that there is a way to like weave and snake your way around here, but I think I've only done it once. We're also going to do a bit of a corner boost there. It's a little bit faster. Now, as I sort of stated inside the Wastes run, there is a way that you can sort of dash out and then in and then out and then in of this sand. And there is a run on Billy that does that. But given how basically impossible it is for a human to do it, I've sort of discarded that run as being, RTA viable done by a human being. So here we see like a grapple fling. I don't know what we're actually calling it, but basically you burrow out of the sand and then you grapple. And that means that you're going to get flung. It somehow retains like your burrow speed. I'm not 100% sure, but that saves a whole heap of time in this run. And then here it's just decent execution. So as we're running away from the worm, there's no actual hitbox at the very back of the worm. The tail hitbox is here-ish, I believe. So you'll see May is skillfully avoiding that and then making her way through. You can do another sort of bow fling up here, but like it's very difficult to do, and it doesn't really cost you all that much or save you all that much. So then you just need to not choke the run, and then it's GG. So that's it from me. That's all of the trials. Thanks everybody for indulging me and letting me espouse, the great word that is Will of the Wisps trials. I would love to see more people running. I'd love to see more competition at every level, but particularly at a higher level. Personally, I don't believe that trials are awfully difficult to get that good at. Obviously, once you're chasing frames, then you're chasing frames. But personally, I believe that to get into the ballpark of the sort of times where you're sitting in a top 5, top 10, that's pretty achievable for most runners. And the best thing about it is that, they're only 10 seconds through to 30 seconds. So if you tilt, that's fine, just reset. Runs don't really matter. So I'd like to thank you all again, and hopefully I see you on the leaderboard.